If you had a magic wand and you could change any system or policy that makes it tougher for the people we serve to become homeowners and wealth builders, what change would you make? Hello and welcome to the Lily Pod, Catapult Greater Pittsburgh's podcast that is a catch-all for all of the programs, all of the services, and all of the incredible people that we meet and work with every single day. So I'm happy to be your host this afternoon. And I want to introduce my incredible guest, Brettney Duck.
Hello.
Brettney is currently Catapult Greater Pittsburgh's Director of Homeownership. She manages all of our financial education programming, all of our homebuyer education programming, pre-purchase, post-purchase, and everything in between. But Brett is more than just Catapult Greater Pittsburgh's Director of Homeownership. She is also a real estate agent. She is a new mom. She is a new homeowner. And she is a new soror of
Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
All right. So Brett is an extremely well-rounded human being, as well as an incredibly important member of the Catapult team. So as we're kicking off Homeownership Month, actually we're wrapping up Homeownership Month 2024. We're getting this in just in time.
Yes.
Because it's been a crazy month. But we're just going to talk all things homeownership today. And so thank you all for joining us. So Brett, tell us how you got into this homeownership space.
Definitely. First of all, thank you for having me as a guest on the Lily Pod. So it's kind of strange how I got into this work. My background is in social service, and I was working as an in-home caseworker, and I was working on my credit at that time. I was in my early 20s and just trying to figure out I knew I didn't want to be in poverty. And I'm like, well, I think you start with your credit. I didn't know. So I took a stab, start doing research and understanding credit, right? Because in my family, that's just not something that we talked about because we didn't know about it. And so I started working really hard and I increased my credit score. And I was like, I got a 750. And so I started being introduced to all these opportunities that I didn't have.
Which credit will
credit
do.
cards,
Credit will open up those doors,
loans, and all of these things. And although I had the credit knowledge, I didn't have the resources to understand how to manage that. So I started doing a little more education, and I saw a job posting at an organization that did financial education, and I took a stab at it, and they hired me. And that was my intro into financial education and home ownership. And so after leaving that organization and going to Catapult Greater Pittsburgh, I really got a deep dive into home ownership, right? So financial education is the foundation of home ownership, but home ownership is a beast within itself. And so, that's pretty much how I got into the work. And Tammy Thompson took a chance on me.
Who?
Right?
Tammy Thompson took a chance
on me. I was early on in my career and understanding, and I think you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at that time. So I do appreciate the opportunity and you taking a chance on me, because now I'm managing a team.
And listen, and I appreciate you trusting me enough to know that I saw something in you, because I did. What I saw in you is what I think is the most important piece of being a counselor of any kind, but a home ownership counselor in an organization who is focusing on the most vulnerable populations of people, specifically low to moderate income buyers. I saw in you a compassion for people, right? And to me, that is the primary attribute that we're looking for when we hire people to do anything at Catapult. But home ownership is so important for wealth building and asset building and breaking up this cycle of poverty that I believe it's extremely important that you bring on the right people and build the right team that not only understands the technical parts of homeownership, but understands the importance of helping people, particularly people who have bought into this narrative that homeownership is not for them. I think it's important to have counselors working with those folks who have a very high level of compassion and empathy. And I'm also a little petty.
The shade.
Listen, it was important to me that I brought you on my team because also I knew where you were coming from, and I kind of wanted to bring you into a more positive environment.
Well, thank you.
And yes, and so we're blessed. We're happy that we have you. Our team has grown tremendously because of your commitment and your passion for this work. So we talked about Brettney as director of homeownership for Catapult, but tell us about being a real estate agent with the incredible Mary Hester and LifeVenture by Choice Homes. How's that been?
Yes, I've been truly blessed in my life to get people surrounded by people who see something in me. So my experience had been in homeownership as a counselor, and then when I met Mary Hester through Catapult, she said, well, why don't you think about becoming a real estate agent? And for some reason, I never crossed my mind, right? And I don't know why, because it should have, but we just don't see ourselves in certain lights. And so I started studying for the test, and it was a challenge, right? That test is not easy. And anybody who says it is lying, right? And so when I passed the test, I was like, okay, what do I do now? And Mary was gracious enough to be a mentor, because anyone who gets into real estate, if you don't have a mentor, I think they say 80% of agents fail in the beginning, because it's not like working for an employer where you have a training manual and you got to just get in it and roll. Yeah. And so at the time, Mary was at Keller Williams, and she's like, come on under me. And I learned so much from her. It was a blessing to have somebody that I could call at 10 o'clock at night when I have a question, because real estate moves fast. And if you don't know what you're doing, you could potentially mess somebody's life up.
Absolutely.
And so it was a blessing. And then when she told me about LifeVenture by Choice Homes, I didn't think for a second, right? I just packed up my stuff and was like, let's go. At that time, I don't think we had an office, right? Yeah. But it was like, okay, what are we doing and how are we doing this? And it has truly been a blessing to be able to merge being the director of homeownership at Catapult and being the lead sales agent at LifeVenture by Choice Homes. I don't think I could have asked for a better matchup.
It's a good setup, Brett.
It's a good setup.
It really is.
And it's a good setup because I'm coming from two places where people are the center. And a lot of us, we forget where we come from, right? Even me, prior to becoming a homeowner, I was a renter and still selling other people's homes, right? And so that was challenging in my mind, but then I had to get out of myself, right? Your goal is to serve people, even if it's not your time. And I think people forget that, right? It's like, if I can't get it, the other person can have it. That's just not who I am as a person. That's not who the people are that are around me. And so being at LifeVenture, it's a phenomenal team at both Catapult and LifeVenture. And so I'm truly blessed to be in this space and to help people accomplish what most of them think they never could think
That's
they could
great.
accomplish.
I'm super, super proud of you.
Thank you.
I always think about how fast time goes. We started working, what was it, 6 years ago?
This is the longest I've been at a job. I want to put that on record. It'll be 6 years, August 3rd.
That's crazy that it's been, a lot has happened in a very short, 6 years is a very short period of time. And I'm just like, your trajectory is just like, you should write the blueprint for some folks, right?
Because what you make me blush.
I know. But so think about, we talked about Brettney, the director of homeownership. We talked about Brettney, the real estate agent. Now, you just recently purchased a home.
Yes.
So talk about Brettney, the homeowner, and what was it like? Because this is a pretty unique thing, right?
Yes.
You have experience on the front end, the behind the scenes, the mechanicals of homeownership. But what was it like going through the process yourself as a first-time home buyer?
So it was quite funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but when I'm teaching this stuff or I'm selling a property, I'm constantly telling my participant or my client, stay calm. You're going to get through this. I'm coaching them through it. I'm being a support. But when you're on the other side of that, and even though I breathe, eat, live homeownership, it was completely different being on the other side, because for a lot of us, this is the biggest purchase we'll make in our life. For a lot of primarily Black and brown folks, we're normally the first homeowners in our families. And so you're thinking about that as you're going through the process. So luckily I am in this space and I know how to navigate it, but I still felt anxious. I still had to call you and complain and call Mary and help get through that process. But what I will say, it helped me even more now to be a better real estate agent and to be a better homeownership director. I think that if you've gone through the process, you can have a little more empathy for the folks that you're servicing, especially because a lot of the experiences that our participants have had, I have also had. And so I'm like, listen, I'm not here to judge you. I have been there. I have been near tears before I got to closing, thinking, is this really going to happen? Because, historically, we've been told that this wasn't for us. So even though I knew it, I knew I could get there in my mind. I'm like, this is not going to happen because this is not for me.
And not only that, but, purchasing a home is a heavy lift for anybody. No matter how much money you have, no matter what types of privileges you have, the process itself can be daunting.
Yeah.
So somebody who's coming into this as a first, like you said, first in the family, who's bringing a lot of poverty trauma into the space, people who have bought into that narrative that homeownership is not for me. All it takes is for one thing to go wrong and stuff starts to slide off the track for you to maybe say, oh, I knew this wasn't for me. I knew I shouldn't have tried to do this, right? And all those little voices start talking in your head. So what do you say to people who are either thinking about becoming a first-time home buyer or who are in the process and are hitting a wall, or who may potentially hit a wall and want to quit? What do you say to those people?
So what I always tell folks is that there's peaks and valleys in life. And it's the same thing with the homeownership process. You just have to keep your eye on the prize and also understand that if this is your goal, right? If this is what you believe in your heart is for you, nothing can stop that.
That's right.
And also don't settle. The inventory is crazy right now. And sometimes I find my clients trying to settle. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. What's for you is for you, right? Obviously, you want to get the education so you make sure you're making the best financial decision, the best decision for your family, but you don't have to settle. What's for you is for you. It might take a little longer before, you might have to look for a couple of months, but just stay the course and always find a team of support. Right? So you have Catapult, your counselors will be your support, but you also need to find a friend who can support you, somebody that you can call and say, listen, I'm going through it. And make sure you get a good agent. Your agent and your loan officer are going to be the two people who drive your transaction. So that's why at Catapult, it's really, really big for us to build relationships with real estate agents and loan officers who understand our mission and understand who we serve.
Absolutely. And one of our next episode is going to be having a discussion with two of our favorite partners, Mary Hester from LifeVenture by Choice Homes and Joe Tomaszewski, our favorite loan officer from First Commonwealth Bank. We're going to talk about how the folks who are coming out of our program, right? The difference between the folks who have received some homebuyer education and those who have received top tier homebuyer education,
makes a
right? Because I
difference.
think it makes a difference. So I'm excited to have that conversation with them. So I'm going to ask you one last question. So at Catapult, as you know, any issues that we are trying to address for people, right? I think we're kind of in the business of being problem solvers for people who want to be wealth builders. But most of those issues and problems are rooted somewhere in bad policy or bad systems.
Absolutely.
If you had a magic wand and you could change any system or policy that makes it tougher for the people we serve to become homeowners and wealth builders, what change would you make?
I would change the automated underwriting system, okay?
Yes.
Because everything cannot be cookie cutter. We are all individuals with different experiences, different challenges, different barriers. And so you cannot use one system to try to put everybody in the same box, right? So I would take my magic wand and say, you know what? Allow everybody to be manually underwritten. And I think that could happen. I don't think that's too far-fetched, right? And especially, you know, we have big mouths at Catapult, so we know how to sound the alarm. And
so that's why I'm happy that we're going to be, you know, in a future episode, we're going to be talking to Joe from First Commonwealth, because Joe is one of those loan officers that I have seen that sees it, that will raise issues like, wait a minute, this is a systems, this is more of a systems issue. But I think we have to get a lot more honest and comfortable speaking to how racism is intrinsically in these systems, right? They're in there, and they were started there. They were started intentionally to be there. And I just don't know if enough lenders are doing the work to be intentional about eradicating the racism that lives at the foundation of the lending system.
Absolutely.
And I think direct underwriting is a result of that, right? It's just like any other program or even AI or anything that's being designed. If it's being designed with a racist eye, it will be a racist policy or system. So, and we're seeing it, right? We're seeing it with a lot of the folks, and it's starting to be more and more, which is alarming, that we're starting in 2024 to see even more people being denied, people who on paper look qualified, and then we send them to a lender, and now all of a sudden they don't qualify. So that is, you know, that's an advocacy issue. That's a systems change issue that is only going to get corrected by being loud and noisy about it. So I appreciate you raising that as an issue. And I think that's also something we want to be doing on this show, is using this platform as a way to talk about particular issues that are becoming gatekeepers for people to build wealth, and how can we invest in advocating for systems and policy change, because otherwise it doesn't matter how much we were, doesn't matter how great of a real estate agent you are or how great we are in what we do, it doesn't matter. So Brettney, is there anything else you'd like to tell folks who are listening, people who might be right now sitting on the edge of their chair, almost touching the button to register for a Catapult program and get into our homeownership program, but they're still hesitant, they're still afraid? What would you say to them?
I would say that we have seen it all. There is no credit profile, no budget. There is nothing that we haven't seen, and we are not here to judge. We're here to support, right? And so all it takes is for you to click that button and complete the intake paperwork, and we will do our part. If you do your part, we will do ours. And the proof is in the pudding. We have had homeowners go through our program.
How many homeowners would you say, Brett?
I would say this year we've had at least 20, which is great in this market. And even if it was just one, right, that speaks to someone's ability to push through barriers and challenges. So I would say don't get in your head, and don't allow you to stop you. Just complete the intake form and let us do the rest.
I love it. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining this episode of Catapult's Lily Pod. Thank you to our guest, Brettney Duck, for taking the time out of her very, very busy day. And we hope to see you again soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.